Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We have a quorum, and we're therefore, in order to proceed, I'd like to say first a welcome to the Election Compliant Audit Committee meeting. We have a quorum, as I say. Bienvenue à tout le monde. À cette réunion du Comité de vérification de conférence des élections. Et on va procéder. On a un quorum ici maintenant. Are there any declarations of interest by members of the committee? There being none, thank you. We'll proceed with the first order of business, which is the confirmation of minutes of our meeting of May 17th. Are the minutes for the May 17 Election Compliance Audit Committee confirmed? Confirmed, thank you. Before considering the application that is before us today, I would like to clarify the committee's purpose here. The committee's purpose is a pre-investigative one. The committee will consider the application for a compliance audit of a candidate's election campaign finances and will decide whether it should be granted or rejected. If this committee decides to grant an objection for a compliance audit, the city clerk and solicitor's office, in consultation with the committee's independent counsel who are with us today, will investigate and will initiate a call-up against the city's standing offer for auditing services and provide the committee with the proposals. The committee will meet again at a later date to appoint an auditor. This is on the assumption that it's on an application that the committee has referred for an audit. And then that second meeting, we will proceed to a compliance audit of the subjects. The committee, will appoint an auditor who will proceed with the compliance audit of the subject's candidate's election campaign finances. An auditor who is appointed by the committee will proceed to investigate the candidate's election campaign finances and will report back to the committee. The auditor's investigation will be conducted independently and will be carried out to determine whether the candidate at issue has apparently contravened the provisions of the Municipal Election Act, 1996, relating to election campaign financing. The auditor's report will outline any apparent contraventions of the Act by the candidate. Once the auditor's report returns to this committee at some later date, this committee will convene to consider the auditor's report and will, as the case may be, based on the contents of the auditor's report, decide whether to commence a legal proceeding against the candidate for any apparent contraventions noted in the auditor's report. It's important to note that neither this committee nor any auditor appointed by this committee have any powers to determine whether a contravention of the Act has occurred. That duty is left to the court. A decision by this committee that an application should be granted does not mean that a contravention has occurred. The committee is not a court and is not a quasi-judicial tribunal. The debates to come before us are not adversarial. There's no cross-examination of witnesses contemplated by our rules of procedure, and there will not be any cross-examination of witnesses or presenters. The committee members may, of course, ask questions of the candidates and the applicant, which are designed to elucidate and elaborate upon the presentations that may have been given. For each application before the committee will hear from the applicant, the candidate, and/or representatives of either parties. The general rule is that all speakers have 5 minutes to speak. The committee rules or procedure do not allow for a right of reply from any of the speakers and does not allow for debate between the applicant and the candidate. Committee members may ask questions of the speakers for the purpose of obtaining information and receiving clarification of the matters under discussion. Once all speakers have spoken, committee members will have an opportunity to ask questions of city staff or the city's or the committee's legal counsel, as well as an opportunity to speak on the matter. The committee will then normally resume or recess the meeting to deliberate in private before moving on with the next item. We have one application on the agenda today. It's an application for a compliance audit of the campaign finances of candidate Eli L. Chantieri for West Carleton March Ward, for the candidate for West Carleton, elected candidate for West Carleton March Ward for the 2018 regular election. We will then consider the appointment of an auditor in a matter dealt with at the last meeting of the committee. I trust that everyone who wishes to speak today has filled out a request to speak form, which are available from city staff. If anybody has not filled out a request to speak and wishes to speak, please do so and submit your request at the front table. With these remarks, shall we begin with the first item on the agenda, being the application for a compliance audit of the campaign expenses of Councillor Eli L. Chantieri. On this item, we currently have the following list of speakers. First, Valerie Findlay, who was the applicant, I see that we have additional written submissions on file. The committee has those in the agenda. The second speaker noted is Adele Muldoon, is listed as a contributor. With these remarks, is Ms. Findlay present? And would you like to come forward and make your presentation, please? I'm sorry, if you stand, then I think it's easier to speak with the mic if you're sitting than standing, probably. We can hear you better, and the proceedings are being recorded.
Good morning, committee members. My name is Valerie Finley, and I'm a resident of Ward 5 here in City of Ottawa. I thank you for the opportunity to address the committee with respect to this request. The request is founded on the Municipal Elections Act and the City of Ottawa's election resources policy, both meant to ensure that the required procedures for a fair electoral process for candidates and the public occurs. At the crux of the request is Councillor Eli L. Shantiri's campaign activities and expenses. I've provided a detailed report with exhibits that was submitted with the application, without prejudice and in the public interest. The general factum sets out the important facts, and there are 3 complaint areas, as well as 2 addendums that were submitted as well. What I would like to do is just provide you a brief summary of the 3 areas of concern and just briefly address the 2 addendums. May I proceed? Thank you. The first concern was related to expenses and spending, noting that there was a marked difference in the councillor's 2018 financial statements compared to 2014, as well as the overall spending amounts appeared extraordinarily low. The above was noted in telephone and internet expenses for 4 months was only $139 for 2018. Advertising for 2018 was $791, while in 2014 it was over $7,000. The 2018 figure appears to exceed the estimated cost based on the frequency of the councillor's political advertisements for the campaign period. No expenses appear to be noted for web development, web hosting, web maintenance, or domain registration, but it's known and is demonstrated in the exhibits that these expenses did occur. Salaries were noted as nil. The second is the use of City of Ottawa resources. The Municipal Elections Act, Section 88.84, prohibits the municipality from making contributions in any form, which includes its assets, resources, services, and employees. The first instance, an email dated September 21st, 2018, shows the councillor using his official City of Ottawa email to address a campaign and debate matter to a constituent with no apparent care taken to reply with his campaign account. This also raises the questions of the span of time from July 3rd, which was the date that the candidate filed his nomination papers, until July 27th, which is when he registered his website and the domain name. That span of time, we presumed that he was communicating with his constituents, and we've evidenced that through social media. However, there's nothing accounting for that span of time and the services that were incurred, the expenses that were incurred. The second instance relates to employees as volunteers and unpaid professionals. This is an area that I'm asking that the committee provide an interpretation of the MEA, specifically Section 88.15(1). Where the value of services provided by volunteers is generally not considered to be a contribution, if professional volunteer services for which they are normally paid are provided, the market value of the service would be recorded as a campaign expense. 8815 states, for the purposes of this act, money, goods, services given to and accepted by a person for his or her campaign, or given to and accepted by another person who is acting under that person's direction, are contributions. At the debates, 2 city employees were observed providing the same service that they provide during the day to the councillor in his office as City of Ottawa employees. Working for the councillor in his office and at ward events such as budget meetings, the concern was that the employees volunteered their expertise, knowledge, and access to information as a service to the councillor and as a professional. This is something no other candidate would reasonably be able to access. This creates a distinct advantage for the councillor, who is also an incumbent. Both employees are paid by the City of Ottawa for their professional expertise, and their volunteering should be viewed as professional services and claimed as an expense at market value. The third and last is incumbent campaign advertising before and during the blackout period. The City of Ottawa election-related resources policy clarified the use of campaign-related material in its draft version of the policy presented at committee. The word advertising was struck out purposely. This indicated that it should be omitted from the allowable activity by incumbents. To that, advertising on West Carleton Online appears to have contravened the City of Ottawa's policy, and also where the councillor's political advertising with the City of Ottawa branding were placed directly beside articles that were interviewing him and profiling his campaign. This was also seen from July 3rd, which was the date of his nomination filing, throughout the blackout period and to voting day. There is also a concern that there is a conflict of interest related to the councillor's involvement with the West Carleton Online, explained in the detailed report. Lastly, there are two addendums that were provided. Both cover separate incidents. The first being, one relates to contravention of the municipal policy and legislation to provision of favor in the form of conveying city resources, so City of Ottawa resources, to supporters of his 2018 campaign. The second relates to accepting a donation from a corporate donor, which is not permitted per Municipal Elections Act 88.8. I'm respectfully asking the committee to provide an audit review and interpretation of the above with the submission of the application. Thank you.
The time provided by the rules has elapsed. Is the committee content to allow the applicant to continue for some period? You're finished?
Yes.
You're finished. Good. Then we won't extend the time. We have your written submissions before us, which can supplement, of course, your presentation just made. Committee members, do you have any questions of the applicant? Committee member Bergeron? Member Bernard? Any questions? Member O'Callaghan?
Thank you very much for your presentation. Let me just touch on a few things. First of all, the email. Now, the email you referred to, is that the email to from Councillor El-Shantiri to Catherine Cowaness?
That's correct.
That's correct. I read that, and there's nothing in that at all about electioneering. It sounds to me like the basis of that, some allegations were being made and had been conveyed to the councillor that he'd been involved in criminal activities, and he responded to it. Neither the email to him nor the response in any way mentions the election. So I'm not sure why you say that's to do with the election.
In the email, I will clarify. So the email, it's not specifically the broader content, but that the constituent had sent the email to Mr. El-Shantiri asking him about a campaign issue. And the campaign issue was allegations that were made by Matt Scoff, the Ottawa Police Association president, which was made public in summer.
I don't want to go through the substance of these, that's not the issue, but the issue is this, that neither email mentions the election.
It does mention the debate,
Well, can you point to me where? And certainly Councillor El-Shantiri's email does not mention the election.
I'm so sorry, sir?
Certainly Councillor El-Shantiri's email in response does not mention the election. I don't want to defend Councillor El-Shantiri, that's his business.
Yes.
But I can find no mention in his email of the election. He's simply responding to quite a dire situation, and I would think that as a councillor he would be concerned, and it would seem to me if I got that in a business situation, I'd take it as a business situation.
May I answer the question? The context of the email was specifically related to the activities of the councillor who was a candidate.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you can tell me about the context. I'm looking at the email.
May I finish answering the question? The context is specifically related to the campaign because the councillor who is the candidate is seeking re-election, and his constituent had a question. So that directly relates to his campaign.
All right, thank you. Secondly, the volunteer issue. These debates, were they on during office hours?
No, they were not.
You say there were professional services. Do you know the job descriptions of these two assistants?
In general, yes.
What are they?
Sylvia Bell was administrative assistant or executive assistant, and Carrie Borges was operations manager.
So professional services, the indications in the literature, the examples are lawyers, accountants, da-da-da-da. Why do you elevate an administrative assistant to a professional?
I don't
maybe it should be, I'm not saying, but...
I don't think that it's ultimately defined that professionals are limited to lawyers or
No.
accountants, but it's that the individuals who are providing the service are paid for that same service during the day, and that would be a professional activity as employees of the City of Ottawa.
Professional activities, the key word is professional here. Okay, advertising. The advertising you speak of, is that the sort of card that appears in the that has appeared in various issues of the online document? Is that the advertising you're saying is inappropriate?
It's provided in the exhibit, sir.
Pardon?
It's provided in the exhibits.
Yes.
It's a box advertisement.
Yes, it's really Councillor El-Shantiri's card. There's nothing in it that says vote for me. You know, advertising, as you draw attention to it in the City of Ottawa election-related resource policy, advertising is material that promotes or opposes the candidacy. There's nothing in that card that promotes his candidacy. Section 88 of the Act also says advertising is to promote or support the election of a candidate. A simple card in a publication by a councillor, which I believe continued after the election. Why do you say that's a promotional material?
Because in the draft policy and in the published policy by the City of Ottawa for election resources, it was specifically in the draft policy that advertisements, the word advertisements was struck out. May I finish, please? For the incumbents. And that's important because there's also an inferential aspect to this in addition. So I think the policy is clear, but also the advertisement, it's not a card, it is a box advertisement that was specifically placed beside articles related to the councillor. The West Carleton Online was only launched on July 3rd for the first time, which was the first day of the nomination filing for Mr. El-Shantiri. On one day, the website launched. They were able to run an ad, or rather an article specifically covering Mr. El-Shantiri's nomination filing, and they were also able to place an ad right beside it. I don't know how that would be done in one day when this online news source is being launched. It seems to me that that is a campaign activity and that it was planned prior to the nomination filing on July 3rd. And that is the, I cannot provide you and will not provide you with the specific or anecdotal evidence, which is why I provided a request in the form of an application.
Okay, the corporate donor issue is a serious one. And you say it's a corporate donor because the business address of the donor is provided. Have you any evidence at all that that donation was made by the corporation as opposed to the individual?
The addendum that was provided, Addendum B, on the corporate donation, I think it was stated that there was a concern. As a member of the public, I'm not in the position to ask for a forensic audit of the individual nor Mr. El-Shantiri's finances from the audit. To me, knowing the process, because I have donated to candidates in the past, you're required to fill out a form. And I have had, although I don't know if it's proper procedure, I have had those that receive the donation check my form and ensure that it matches the check that I provide to them. The box address that is provided by the corporate donor, or I'm so sorry, by the donor, is to a company that is registered with the City of Ottawa. They do have contracts with City of Ottawa, and they are a corporation in the province of Ontario.
But the donation form, the donation return lists the individual, not the company.
I'm so sorry, can you repeat that?
The return made by Councillor Gentiri, where he lists his donations, he lists the individual, not the company.
It lists the individual's name, but his corporation, where he is CEO and president of another company that does business with Ward 5 as well as the entire city. And the optic is that procedurally, if you are providing a donation to a candidate, that as an individual, you would ensure that that is coming to your personal primary residence, not the company that you own.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Member O'Callaghan. Member Wong? Ms. Finley, a number of places in your written material you have, and indeed all you've suggested you're not in a position to obtain factual information, but you're requesting factual information be disclosed by the candidate, and you're requiring additional information. It would seem to me that a lot of your presentation is based on speculation, while the expenses were less than you would expect, and there's kind of suspicion of wrongdoing more than facts that are the basis of your request. Is there any other conditions or any other situation or facts that we should be aware of that led you to bring this application? Is there any animus between yourself and the candidate that may have contributed to your bringing the application?
Is there any, I'm sorry?
Is there any history of political or ill feelings of any kind that has led you to making the application?
No, I think that I've acted in the, and on behalf of other individuals in our community to bring forward matters that we have concerns about through the proper governing processes, what we believe this committee to be here for. I do believe that I've provided evidence in the form of what was available in public record or that was provided by other constituents. I don't believe, and I apologize if I'm incorrect on this, but I don't believe that I'm in any position to compel Mr. El-Shantiri to reveal his expenses or receipts to us in the event that we feel as though there is a particular issue in terms of discrepancy or omission. On the balance alone of math, if we look at $139 for 4 months of internet and cell phone use, that is improbable. And there is also no mention of, so that amount would naturally be exceeded, so it causes question. And I do not think that I'm approaching this from a biased perspective, but if I told anybody that I was paying $40 a month for a cell phone service, they would want to know who my service provider is. And I think that's a fair question, because the importance of stating the expenses accurately is absolutely dependent on the fairness afforded to the other candidates, especially when you are dealing with an incumbent. And as much as maybe I would like to present a number of different anecdotal perspectives, I don't feel as though that's appropriate. I think I prepared a package with the accompanying exhibits and the information that was given to me by a number of constituents and experience on my own that would support an application. without making aspirations.
Thank you. So just confirming, there's no hard feelings between yourself and the candidate that led you to making the application?
I don't know the councillor personally. I have never submitted any formal applications through the city. I don't deal with him professionally on any basis. I simply do not agree with some of the activities that I have been apprised with.
Thank you.
Just a small secondary. You've quoted a number for the phone bills. Where do you get that number?
A number of, I'm sorry?
You've quoted a number, I think you said $139 or something like that for phone. Where do you get that number?
From his 2018 financial statement.
I don't see that number there.
$139 for telephone and internet?
I see phone 304.
I believe that's 2014, isn't it?
No. No, 2014 is 113.
I'm so sorry, then I've inverted the numbers. But my position on it still stands, that it is extraordinarily low, and that I provided evidence of that in the detailed report, where if the presumably web design, his website, which was hosted, which is an expense, the web maintenance and the domain registration would still exceed that amount. And I'm only assuming that that was not included in the office expenses, that it was included under telephone and internet, which, based on the evidence that I provided as in the exhibits, it is not correct. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. There being no further questions, thank you. And I understand the next person on the speakers list is Adele Muldoon. Would you come forward, please?
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman and committee members, my name is Adele Muldoon, and I am speaking only to issue number 2 in the application, use of city resources. As a member of the committee responsible for organizing the First All Candidates debate for Ward 5's 2018 election campaign, I arrived early and was asked to have people write out the questions they had for the candidates, collect them and sort them according to their topics. While I was doing that, Carrie Bourget and Sylvia Bell, members of Councillor El-Shantiri's office staff, arrived and took up a corner in the back of the room. Shortly after their arrival, the Master of Ceremonies and coordinator of the evening came to me and asked if I was a member of one of the candidates' campaign teams, and I replied that I was not. He said that someone from the councillor's campaign team believed that I was and had asked that I be removed from the task I was doing. While I was not yet supporting a candidate at that time, I was willing to give up the task and have someone else take over for me. The debate was my first opportunity to get to hear Judy Vargatoff speak on the issues, and I was anxious to see how she would do. She was another candidate in the election. As we left at the end of the evening, I congratulated her on a job well done. That was when she asked me if it was legal for a sitting councillor to have his staff at a campaign event. I hadn't thought about it until she raised the question, but I had a nagging suspicion that she was right. And now I know from reading the material that the support they were giving Eli was inappropriate, as the other candidates did not have access to city staff to take notes or give advice during the debate. I feel that this one debate and one held at Carp shortly after the tornado hit Robin were not enough to allow the community to make an informed decision in the election. I could not attend the second debate myself, as my husband, who was critically injured in the tornado, was still in serious condition. I'm I wanted to attend the third scheduled debate, but Eli apparently refused to attend that, and it was canceled. Many people have expressed their concern that they had no chance to see the other candidates. I don't have this here, but we have no real local paper anymore that reaches our community, and you are probably all aware that it's the largest geographic community in Ottawa. And I have always been interested in my community and in my municipal government. And I just feel that this election was not democratic, open, and the people of West Carleton did not get a fair opportunity to even meet the other candidates or hear what they had to say. It's very unfortunate. I know that doesn't address all your issues specifically. I'm giving you my personal feelings and why I'm here today. To support I admire a young woman in our community to take the time and effort to do the research she has, because people are concerned. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions, members? There being no questions, I have no questions either. Thank you for coming and making your concerns known.
Thank you.
There being no further speakers shown on my list for the applicant, proceed to hear from the candidate. And Councillor, do you wish to speak, or do you wish to be represented by your council?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Greg Meads, M-E-E-D-S. I'm here with the candidate, who is happy to answer any questions you may have, but I'll be doing most of the speaking otherwise.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As a matter of context, and this refers to some of the suspicions or concerns of the applicant with respect to the campaign expenses for some reason being lower in certain areas this year. As a matter of context for the candidate's campaign in 2018, the candidate operated a fairly limited campaign, particularly during the last month of the election, as he was occupied to a great extent with the impacts and recovery from the September 21st tornado that ravaged a portion of his ward. I'll turn to the 4 issues addressed by the applicant using her numbering. Issue number 1, again, is the general concern implying irregularities as a result of discrepancies between the candidate's 2014 and 2018 campaign expenses. Mr. Chair, all expenses are accurately reflected in the candidate's financial statement, and the receipts are in the package provided to you this morning. You have that package of documents.
I believe we do, but thanks for drawing it to my attention. I'll look for it in the material here.
Okay. Turning to issue number 2A, using the applicant's numbering, she has suggested the use of City of Ottawa assets, resources, or services during the campaign period. The candidate and his staff, Mr. Chair, are experienced with and trained on the city's policy in this regard. No city resources were used for campaign purposes. As Member O'Callaghan properly surmised or assessed, the email referred to by the applicant spoke to an ongoing issue that the candidate had been dealing with as a councillor, not the campaign. The candidate had ongoing responsibilities as councillor, which of course did not stop during the campaign period. In addition, the campaign received authorization from the city clerk and solicitor's office to communicate directly with residents, of course, on tornado-related activities. This authorization is found at page 17 of the documents provided this morning. I don't think it's necessary to make particular reference to it, but it's there. Regarding the allegation that the candidate advertised as councillor during the campaign period, the documents provided by the applicant are misleading. The West Carleton online ad in question, even if one considers the posting of the councillor's contact information as an ad, was only placed in December of 2018. It was not there in July, August, September, October, or November. It first appeared well after the election. Perhaps the reason for the confusion by the applicant is, as is the case with most websites, when you access an archived article, for example, it will show the current advertising around the perimeter, and that's common for all websites. So that ad, when you go and look at that article from July 3rd, if you go look now, presumably you'll see that ad, but that ad did not appear in July. It did not appear until December. And attached at page 18 of the documents is the invoice for the ad in question from November. Issue number 2B, the applicant alleges that 2 members of the candidate staff provided professional services during the campaign. I agree entirely with Member O'Callaghan's assessment of those issues. I would add that those members attended 2 evening debates on their own time and provided exactly the same type of assistance as any other campaign volunteer at such an event. They provided no assistance which could in any way be considered to be professional in nature, and the suggestion that any candidate staff is precluded from volunteering at such events is absurd. In fact, I would surmise that at every single campaign over the past however many elections, every incumbent has had members of their staff participate in such events without issue, as it's permitted. In summary, the councillor has properly accounted for all expenses incurred in the campaign. His expenses fell well below his authorized campaign expense limit, and the committee should put an end to this matter today. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And with that, I hear... just the ding indicates. Before calling you to order, you were finished again. Must commend all presenters of sticking very closely to the time limits. There are questions of Mr. Meade. Member Bergeron, Bedard, O'Callaghan.
Yes, please, Mr. Chair. Yeah. Good morning.
Good morning. Sorry, Mr. O'Callaghan, is this for me or the candidate?
The candidate, probably.
Okay.
But it really doesn't matter, whichever
Sure.
you can provide the most concise explanation. You are pretty frugal. Your office expenses are $394. Do you rent an office, a campaign office?
Through the chair, no, sir, we didn't. As you heard earlier, September 21st was a tornado, and we got really busy with the tornado from there on. So, no, we didn't have an office space.
But you started in July.
Yeah, we started July 3rd, and in preparation for the election, but we didn't have an office. And during all the campaign I ran, I never rent an office, sir.
So where do you store signs and distribute them from? And
The signs, we receive them on the date we can disturb them and put them on a private property. I didn't put any signs before. I mean, you can put signs 60 days on a public road allowance or 30 days on a private end. So we didn't take the signs until 30 days before, and we delivered them the same day we received them from the sign company.
And again, just out of respect for the applicant, your phone and internet costs are very low. You had volunteers, I accept that. Did you equip them with phones?
No, sir.
Did they use their own?
No, they didn't, because we have my wife's phone, sir, and she just had a voice message directing people who's calling us to the website. Go to Vote Eli 2018 website, and from there we can communicate with the request, media request, or all candidate meeting whatsoever.
So your position is that none of your volunteers made any phone calls to do with the election at all?
No, sir. If they did it after hour on their own phone, but I mean, we didn't have a lot of volunteers. Like, I had volunteers to go with me door to door, but even that, I didn't do much of the door to door.
Did you equip your staff with campaign phones?
No, sir.
Did they make any calls relating to your campaign?
I don't believe so, sir, because most of the stuff was coming through the website. Most of the questionnaire. If people request to sign, our material said, please visit our website, give us your address. It's privately, so we can go bring you a sign.
Thank you kindly.
Thank you very much, Mr. Callahan.
I think this is perhaps more a question of the candidate than his representative. We have in the material that's been filed a independent auditor's report by Parker Prinz Labano. Did you file this report with your financial statements for the election in 2018?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I have a question regarding your advertisement expenses. In your campaign financial statement, you have reported $791 paid to Valley Heritage Radio. And on the last page of your new submissions, there's advertising fee of $197 paid to Western Carton Online. That's not part of campaign expense, right? Correct?
To the member through the chair, the document at page 18 is for the advertisement which commenced after the campaign period. So that's the online ad that appeared in December. So that's not a campaign expense.
Okay. And you said the Western Carton Online, the post advertisement by the Mr. Councillor was placed on July 3rd, but not appear until December 2018.
No, it was.
Why?
To be clear, it was not placed in July. It would appear if you looked at the website, if you went back and looked at that article from July, if you pulled that up, it would show the ads currently, which includes that ad. That ad did not exist until December 15th.
But the West Carton Online was launched on July 3rd.
Yes, that's my understanding, but there was no advertising placed at that time.
Okay. So from July 3rd until December, no advertisement from
That
Mr.
is
Councillor?
correct.
Okay, good. Thank you.
If I may make 10 seconds just to comment, I forgot one issue, and that's with respect to the Carson contribution. I think it's clear what our position is. That's clearly a personal contribution, which is fully permitted. Owners and operators of corporations make individual donations all the time, and there's no issue with that. I just wanted to address that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Members and Councillor, Mr. Mead, if there are no further questions of the candidate or his representative, are there any further speakers? I have no further speakers on my list. That being the case, questions to the speakers are now closed. We will now move on to asking questions of staff and to the committee's legal counsel. If any of the committee members have any questions of staff or staff wish to make any submissions to the committee, no? Seeing none, each committee member has up to 5 minutes themselves if they wish to speak to the matter. If not, if there's no one wishing to make a, sorry, member? Yeah. Okay. The committee will now, at the suggestion of Member Bedard, the committee will recess in private until to debate and what we've heard and read today. And I don't expect we will be more than half an hour, and we will call the call the meeting to order again when we come out of private session in approximately half an hour. Thank you all.